to find Tina on her bed covered in blood. Chad Heins called 911. The investigation and evidence at that time pointed only to Chad Heins. Chad's brother and Tina's husband, Jeremy Heins, was on duty on a Navy ship at nearby NAS Mayport. Chad was in the apartment at the time of Tina's killing. He claimed to have been sleeping just feet away from where Tina was murdered when she was murdered. In 1996, a jury convicted Chad Heins of Tina's murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. By the early 2000s, new DNA technologies had come online that would allow preserved evidence that had been collected in 1994 from Tina's body and her bed to be tested in a way that had not been available to law enforcement at the time of her murder. Using this advanced and more sophisticated technology, post-conviction testing on this evidence began. The story of the forensic evidence took shape. A DNA profile of an unknown man emerged. DNA from under Tina's nails, from hairs collected from her body, and from a semen stain on her sheets were that of a man who was not her husband and was not her brother-in-law, Chad. That DNA profile was uploaded into CODIS, a national DNA database. The unknown DNA profile ran weekly for years without a hit. No match. Investigators interviewed countless people associated in both large ways and small ways with Tina Heins. They collected DNA from each of those people and compared that DNA to this unknown DNA profile to no avail. No match. In 2007, based on this DNA evidence, the state of Florida dismissed the case against Chad Heins, but we continued to seek to determine the donor of the unidentified DNA. This DNA profile would remain unidentified for the next 15 years. In 2005, I was asked to oversee the post-conviction investigation and DNA submissions. I carried that responsibility through the case dismissal in 2007. When I returned to the state attorney's office in 2017, our goal to identify the man under Tina's nails on her body and in her sheets was a priority. In 2021, after the breakthrough in the Golden State Killer case, we sent, at the recommendation of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, what little DNA remained in this case to a lab in Texas, whose work was known to be highly successful in the identification of individual profiles from minute amounts of DNA, which was the case here. A profile was developed and the lab began genetic genealogy searches. Through genetic genealogy, Othram Labs identified a likely match. Our detectives and forensic experts confirmed the match. Michael Shane Ziegler. Michael Shane Ziegler is now 52 years old. He was living with his mother outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He is a retired merchant marine. We learned that in 1994, Michael Ziegler was here in the Navy, stationed at Mayport aboard the USS Lady Gulf. We also learned this. He was not a stranger to Tina Heins. Michael Ziegler was her husband Jeremy's very close friend. In fact, he stood witness at their courthouse wedding just 5 months before Tina was killed. And though difficult to see, he's on the far right there, a picture taken at their courthouse wedding. For 3 decades, Ziegler remained under the radar, but his biological footprint endured. And with persistence and advancements in science, we finally caught up to him and caught him. On August 28th, this year, Alan Mizrahi presented this case to a Duval County grand jury. The grand jury indicted Michael Ziegler for the first-degree murder and sexual battery of Tina Heins. On September 4th, thanks to the good work of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, the Clayton and Newton Counties Sheriff's Offices, the U.S. Marshals Regional Fugitive Task Force, and the Georgia State Patrol, Ziegler was arrested near his home in Covington, Georgia, without incident. He was returned here last week to Jacksonville, and today he sits in the Duval County Jail without bond. The trial team of Alan Mizrahi and Jay Plotkin will lead this prosecution moving forward. I'll turn the podium now over to Director Kyan.
So good afternoon. I am Edwin Kyan, the Director of Investigations and Homeland Security for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. This announcement demonstrates the strength of our partnerships. I am proud to stand here today with the State Attorney's Office and our JSO detectives, who have worked tirelessly for decades to bring answers to Tina Heins' family. It wasn't easy, but the men and women who carried this case never gave up. Now, 31 years later, and with the help of advanced DNA technology, we are able to announce this arrest. While Tina's life was tragically cut short, we hope this development brings some measures of peace to her loved ones. I want to personally thank the cold case teams both at JSO and at the State Attorney's Office. Standing with us today is JSO Detective Dennis Sullivan, who led the case for our agency. His persistence, professionalism, and dedication made this day possible. This remains an active case, so we cannot release every detail, but we are grateful to see Michael Ziegler finally held accountable for this horrific crime he committed. Thank you.
As Director Kyan said, this is an active investigation. Obviously, this has been a very long journey, most especially for Tina's family. And for those who have worked tirelessly on this case, they have done so for one reason, and that was in the pursuit of justice. So today, we're one step closer to that goal, but this investigation does continue. It was important to apprise the public and you all of this development, but because this remains an active investigation, we will not be answering any questions at this time. I really appreciate you coming today to cover this important development in this case. Thank you very much.
You're just listening to a significant update in a case that we've been following for years. Our reporting back in 2019, the latest of Tina Heins and her unborn child who were stabbed to death. It sounds like they believe that they have new DNA evidence to connect the new person who they believe was the murderer in that case.
Yeah, apparently this is Michael Ziegler. Because of the new DNA, the technology and all that, they were able to arrest Michael Ziegler up in Georgia. We'll have the very latest on the story coming up on Action News Jax at 4 o'clock.